It's the Dropping Dimes podcast. I'm your host, Mark Veer, and welcome to episode number 32. We are still in our season 4 Coach's Corner, and we're going to call this one Homeschool Edition. In front of me, I have Anthony Sanzano and Randy McGibbony. Fellas, how we doing this morning?
Great, Mark. Thanks for having us.
Doing great.
I appreciate you both coming on. This is going to be an interesting podcast. I personally I've been involved in San Antonio basketball for 20 years, and I really don't understand how the homeschool system kind of works. I think it's going to be really good for parents and anybody listening to be educated in this space, as we only have one homeschool team here in San Antonio. But before we do that, let's just have some quick intros, kind of introduce yourself, let us know a little bit about you and what you got going on today. Anthony, we'll start with you.
Okay, Mark. Yeah, thanks for having us. I'm Anthony Sanzano. I've been with San Antonio Patriots for several seasons now, both as a parent and then growing as a coach. And just thankful for opportunities that I've had to coach at the different levels, 14U, 16U, and our 18U program. Youth sports was great for me. It really opened up a lot of doors, and I always knew that I wanted to give back to youth sports. And so getting involved in coaching was a great way to do that and connect with the homeschool community and be able to serve there. It's just been a blessing. So thankful to be on and share a little bit about homeschool basketball with you.
Thanks. Randy, same question for you.
Yeah, I got started with homeschool basketball just by chance, really. Been involved with it for probably the past 4 years now. I think this may be my 5th year. My son's best friend, actually, we've obviously homeschooled. My son really never took an interest or shine to basketball. I grew up playing basketball, played through high school, was always a sport of my choice growing up, obviously. But my kiddos never really stuck to it. And then one of my oldest, his best friend, actually one of the star basketball players for our program, wound up telling him about this basketball program, just wanted him to come out. And so he came out. And that's how we got kind of indoctrinated into the program. I started out like Anthony, very similar, just as a parent, and then was invited to be on the sideline just because I knew a little bit about basketball. And I think that's the homeschool way. With a lot of us dads and us moms out there, we wind up coaching our own kids. And then through my background, a little bit about myself, I'm a CEO for a local mid-sized nonprofit, started to work with some of the administration inside of the Feast program. What was initially Feast, and it actually broke off, Mark, I don't know if you know that, became San Antonio Patriots. So we're no longer affiliated with Feast. So we've started our own 501c3 about 2 years ago, and then was invited along to try to help out with the nonprofit sector, given my background. Very similar to Anthony, I've always worked with youth. My background has always been with disenfranchised youth and helping those youth. And so coaching wasn't, in doing this work, particularly with the nonprofit sector, wasn't anything that was out of the norm for me. It was an inviting way to continue to get back to the community.
Awesome. Okay. Thanks for both sharing that. I did not know it wasn't Feast anymore. So San Antonio Patriots, love it. Okay. Anthony, first question for you, right out of the gate. Explain to everybody what an actual homeschool program is from a basketball standpoint. My daughter does homeschool gymnastics. Very, very different. And I have no idea. So kind of just share everybody what a homeschool basketball program is.
Homeschool basketball, it provides an opportunity for homeschool students to be able to join together and play sports. As we know, a lot of the private and public schools in San Antonio do not allow homeschoolers to participate on their sports. There are some teams and schools that do allow it, but overall majority, they're not permitted to. Governor Abbott did sign a law that does permit it, but each school district has to vote it in, is the way I understand it. And that has not been widespread here through San Antonio. So homeschool sports is an avenue for parents and families to be able to have that experience of playing for a quote unquote school or a team outside of like an AAU experience. And so it's governed by national laws. That's one of the misperceptions that we kind of make up our rules as we go along. We don't. We're governed by national laws that we have to comply with in order to be eligible for our postseason play. So by and large, the homeschool sports really, it provides homeschool families an opportunity for sports. And San Antonio Patriots has more than basketball. We have several sports that are offered to homeschool families, and that is the requirement. You have to homeschool, and we're upfront too, and we're transparent with this. Is a Christian organization. This is a Christ-centered organization that uses sports as one more avenue for families have to raise their children and provide them similar opportunities that they would be afforded in a public or a private setting.
Okay, love it. Randy, question for you. So talk to me about homeschool as far as, is this something they do online? Are they going to a location? Are they students in a class? Kind of explain how that all works.
So the definition of homeschool per the national requirement to participate in the basketball program itself is 51% of that has to be presented. The classroom teaching has to be done by the parent themselves. And so that can happen inside of the home itself. It can happen through a co-op, either way. And so as long as 51% of the homeschooling is done by the parent and guided by the parent.
Okay, so like example with my daughter, she does homeschool gymnastics. She goes to gymnastics in the morning, 4 or 5 hours a day. Pick her up, go to lunch, come home, and we jump online. We do Texas Connections Academy, which is out of Houston. Is that something that you guys, does it have to be a particular one, or is there certain programs that are acceptable and they go to it? How does that work?
The definition of homeschool is it's just guided by the caregiver themselves, and so the caregiver can choose whichever curriculum they would like to follow themselves. So, like I said, just needs to be guided by the parent and the choosing of the parent.
All right.
No particular.
Good stuff. Anthony, question for you. Like what brought you to dive into homeschool? I know you said you wanted to kind of coach your kids and things like that, but you've stuck around. I believe Ryan is off to college, so you're kind of still involved. I'm not sure if you're coaching as much, but what just brought you to do this and felt like it was the best thing for you personally and for also your family?
Right. No, good. So we've been a homeschool family ever since our first child was of school age. We have 7 children. Our oldest is 24, and so she's out of college now, and our youngest is 13. And so we were homeschooling from day one, and our children just took to sports. They really enjoyed team sports, and so we would always look for opportunities for them to be able to participate and play in. And like I said, a lot of the schools don't allow that participation. So sometimes we're relegated just to city leagues or summer leagues, which are usually short in duration. And then, we we're a military family, so we moved around. We moved into San Antonio, and we were introduced to this homeschool organization that offered sports. And it was like a perfect match for our family. It lined up our kids with the sports that they love to play. And so, like I said, it kind of started out as a parent, just getting them there, cheering from the sidelines and watching them. And then I grew up playing sports, and I couldn't resist the opportunity to coach or get a little bit more involved than just be a spectator. And so for our family, it was just a natural match. Our kids had a passion for it. Thankfully, I had a background in it myself, and a love for youth sports. And so we just got involved, as soon as we got to San Antonio and learned about the program, and our kids were of age.
I got a follow-on question. I didn't know you had seven children. That's awesome. So I would say you're pretty well, have a lot of experience in this space. Any parents listening, I'm in my second year, maybe my third year with Ava. It's tough. It's tough to be a learning coach is what we are called with homeschool. What are the challenges you've had with so many kids with them being homeschooled?
I think for us, one of our challenges was just, like I said, we're a military family. And so we would move in and out. Not every city offers homeschool sports like San Antonio does. So we're really blessed in San Antonio to have this opportunity. So that was always one of the biggest challenges. And, having 7 kids, people would joke, like, we have our own basketball team. We have close to our own baseball team. So it wasn't uncommon for us just to be able to go out there and play as a family. But when you reach a certain age, you really want that sense of team. And like for us, that's a big part of our homeschooling experience, is having our kids involved in sports, not just for the winning and losing, but for the lessons that could be learned through sports. And, so having an opportunity for them to participate in team sports like this was just huge for us. I think it really added to their education. And I know I'm talking a lot about my family, but the way homeschool families are, once you get involved in a program like this, your family just becomes extended. All the families that are there, they're tight. They're all like-minded. It's an easy group to get connected with. And once you get involved, it's really hard to step away from it, because you gain such a love for the other kids and other families that are out.
Love it. Okay. Appreciate it. Randy, similar question for you, but any advice for a parent listening that would be interested in doing homeschool and sports? What does that look like for them?
Yeah, first thing I would recommend is just locate your local homeschool sporting program, right, in order to get actively involved. Check it out and be sure that it matches your values for your family, and the culture matches the values for what you're looking for your kiddo. Just similar to what Anthony said, I got involved in sports very, very early on in my life, and really what sports gave me the opportunity to do is really kind of learn about the values of life, right? What happens in life, the failures, picking yourself up, having a great mentor as a coach, and all those things sports is really an analogy for life if you have the right coaches in your life, right? And so I think that families need to understand and approach sports from that way. If you treat sports in that way, then you'll get a lot more value, particularly out of the homeschool program, because the entire program, I believe, when I walked in, what was so attractive about the homeschool program for me, sporting program for me, is it was very much that from the get-go. There was a great sense of competition, but the competition was not more important than what it was being taught inside of that program to that child about life and the outcome of life at the end of this thing. 1% of the children, irregardless, some schools may be a little bit higher if they're prep schools, are going to go on to D1 college or D2 college or even a D3 college. And so what's important to the homeschool community, what I've gathered, not just at the San Antonio Patriots, but when we travel and we go to these homeschool tournaments, you see it in other programs as well, is that these kids are being taught life lessons throughout the entire program. And it's very much a community, and it's not just within our program. That was the thing that was very shocking to me, was that this was something that was cultivated in all the programs that we've come across. Anthony, I don't know if you feel that way, but
Yes.
I definitely see it in all the programs that we've come across with and that we interact with. It's not a Saturday AAU get together where parents are screaming and yelling and the refs don't care. It's very much a family involved environment. And you hear that from the referees who coach it. You hear it from the other coaches. You hear it from the families who are involved in it. And so just getting out and seeing what the homeschool programs have to offer inside of your community, I think those who are homeschooling their children, they're going to fall in love if they like sports and they have the proper expectation.
Love it. Great answer. Okay. We're going to talk about practice schedules, game schedules, how that work, tournaments, how you have to kind of figure out your own schedule. But I want to talk about misconceptions first, because we talked a little bit before the podcast a few weeks ago, and I'm learning so much. I'm like, okay, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. This is what I thought about homeschool. So, Anthony, question for you. What are the biggest misconceptions about a homeschool basketball program I know other sports, but we're a basketball podcast. What you got?
No, thanks for giving us a chance to talk to this, because I mean, just over the years, some of the things we've heard terms of you're a basketball factory, you're an extended AAU team, you write your own rules, and I could sympathize. I could see why somebody who's not familiar with homeschool sports may say that, but inside the homeschool sports circle, we know that's far from the truth. First and foremost, just like any other parents. You want to see your kids be able to grow. Sports is just one more tool that parents have available to them to help their kids grow. Kind of like Randy said, player development, character development, and so that's how a lot of the families treat this. And so, like I kind of alluded to earlier, we have national guidelines that we follow, or we're not allowed to participate, or we're banned or suspended if we violate those rules. We have rules regarding students that transfer into our program, students that weren't there a year before that are now here now. The national interest, gentleman's name is Rob Flatt, does an amazing job running this across the nation for homeschool sports. He's been doing this. His father did it for a long time. He picked it up after him. So they have years and years of service towards homeschool sports. They know the things that give us a black eye, that give us a bad name, and they they do their best to root that out every year, so that homeschool sports could stay consistent. It could be a trusted brand where local schools would feel good about scheduling games against you. They feel they're getting fair and honest competition. And that's really what we strive to do, is to make sure we protect the homeschool name and brand so that it's trusted across the nation.
Yeah, I do, like you said, like basketball factory, because I've seen you guys play over the years. So I knew that wasn't the case. But I think a lot of people do believe like homeschool is you're recruiting a bunch of kids. You just make them go to homeschool. Hey, just go homeschool, get online, do this. But we're going to be a basketball factory and get loaded. We're going to get college coaches watching you all the time. Now, San Antonio has got in a lot of trouble, even back to the Nahara days at Cornerstone, about illegally recruiting kids. And unfortunately, it's still going on in San Antonio. There's kids jumping from school to school. Now we've got this open enrollment deal, and it's I don't know. I hope, San Antonio can get a hold of it. But I do think it's unfair to you guys that are doing everything by the guidelines, doing everything correct, that you guys may get labeled as a basketball factory that is recruiting. It's far from that, right?
It is, Mark. In fact, we have to submit a roster each year.
Okay.
And any student that's new to our program, we have to explain to the national board where they're coming from. And there's certain rules, like if you're coming from a brick and mortar school, if you're transferring from another homeschool, and there's rules that they have to be met. If not met, they're either not eligible or they have to sit out for a period of time. There's different rules that govern it, and there's only a certain number of transfers that you're allowed in for the year in order to stay eligible for postseason play. So, like I said, it is governed, and because they want the brand protected as well.
So, follow-on question. If I'm a kid that's a good basketball player in the city and I go to public school and I've decided to make the shift and I want to go play for the Patriots, maybe it's my junior year, my senior year, and I'm a college prospect, what do they have to go through to do that? It seems like I just can't transfer over there and I'm good to go. I can play immediately. So what does that actually look like?
The first thing they have to prove is that they're at that 51% homeschool.
Okay.
So if they're not there, they're not even welcome to apply to the program. The second thing is that it depends on what age that they're coming in at. If you're telling me a college prospect, he's probably going to be a varsity level player. So as Anthony said, if they're brick and mortar, they're going to have to sit out for an extended period of time before they're allowed to come in and play. If they're a senior, I think it's a senior. Anthony, correct me if I'm wrong, because we ran into this last year, right? I think it was a senior. They have to sit out until at least January 1st inside of our program. So they're going to miss half the season. Our season doesn't really get going. Our tournament season starts to turn on around mid-January, and then we go to nationals in March. And so you're talking about a kiddo who would be a college prospect coming into a program that misses half the season, that they're going to have to get integrated into playing inside of that program in just a short window of weeks. And who's coached basketball understands that that's a very difficult prospect to have. So it's not fit for a kiddo just to jump over and transfer over because of the rules that have been set forward by the National Homeschool Basketball Association. So, it's very, very difficult to have these kids just jump. You can't do it. You're allowed to do it. But I can't just go out and recruit. It's funny you asked this question because literally I'm receiving text right now as the commissioner of our program. I have to guard against that. I have to, even at the 14U level, I have a great basketball coach who is a former WNBA basketball player who is homeschooling her kids. We didn't recruit her. She came over to us last year. She didn't coach last year. She wants to coach her boys this year inside of the program. And I said, okay, great. She's obviously well connected into the community with some other programs. And she's saying, hey, I got this kid who I coach in AAU. And I said, ma'am, you can't do that. You can't go around. You can't be recruiting. And so I'm literally in the process of texting her this morning that she can't recruit kids from outside of the program to come into the basketball program. It's funny because it's not just the community that needs to be educated on it. When we bring in coaches, and you made a point earlier, you asked, I think you mentioned earlier about the recruitment of coaches that we may be able to go out and recruit all these college level coaches. First off, we don't pay our coaches. I don't know any college level coach that's going to come in and do this just for free out of the kindness of their heart. And so we have to I'm scrambling right now just to get our season launched because our tryouts here are in a couple of weeks at the beginning of September. And I'm trying to fill the vacant coaching positions 10 times. They're backfilled by parents who are homeschooled. Many times they don't have a basketball background. And so we're trying to train them and coach them up on how to coach their basketball teams. And it starts with having those Christian values. But in that process, part of that coaching up is getting them to understand what the rules are, to be sure that we don't endanger our eligibility into going to the national program. Because at the varsity level, which is our highest level of competition, obviously, we want our varsity program to be able to compete at the National Homeschool Basketball Tournament up in Springfield, Missouri every year. There have been programs throughout the years. There's a great program in Texas, fantastic program that recently started a couple years ago. Great competition. Self-disclosed that they had a kiddo come over and they didn't do the sit-out period. Now, because of their self-disclosure, they're not eligible to participate inside the National Homeschool Basketball Championship for the next several years. I think it's 3 years. They won't 3 to 4 years. They won't let them participate in that program. But that's the level of integrity that happens inside of homeschool basketball sports. This team knew that they had violated the rule, self-disclosed that, and then were still, punished by not being able to participate in it. And so it's taken very, very serious to have kids jump from school to school and they don't follow those rules.
I don't want to sound like negative on this podcast, but just listening to you both is you guys get labeled of bending the rules, right? Recruiting, homeschool doesn't, they can kind of do what they want. But man, listening to both of you, it's very nip tight. It's very like you are by the law. It's strict. Everybody's following the guidelines. If you don't, there's consequences. Unfortunately, that's not happening much in the private school here in San Antonio. I'm just being honest. I mean, I am very well connected. I know both you are. We're not going to dive into those incidents, but yeah, the integrity of basketball should be number one. And I love that you guys are doing that. I think other people listening, and there will be some people listening on here, need to follow suit because I think it's unfair that you guys are getting labeled that way. And clearly that is not what is happening here. So,
And Mark, can I add one other thing to
absolutely.
that? Only just because I think it's important for people to understand, because you mentioned scheduling earlier. When we play other homeschool programs, they're abiding by these rules, right? Those rules aren't the UIL rules, right? I think it's important that people understand that. In order for us to get UIL type games with, schools, or even with some private schools, we have to look into their rule system, and we have to apply that rule system on top of our stringent rules. And so just to try to get invited to play a 5A school or a 4A school that is in the UIL regulation. So not only are we battling against this perception of we're a club basketball program, we don't follow rules, but we're trying to not only abide by the national homeschool rules, we're trying to abide by UIL rules just so we can get to play local competition so our teams don't have to travel all over the state. And a lot of schools don't understand that. We're willing to work with you. You tell us what we need to do. We'll abide by those rules and we'll follow those rules. But it adds that extra layer, of protection for homeschool integrity in basketball. And I don't think a lot of schools even understand that we're doing that as well.
Yeah, absolutely not. It's great stuff. We're going to dive into schedules here in a little bit. I just have one more question and we'll go there. So, and I'll kind of see where this takes us. But Anthony, do you guys have a practice facility, a home a gym that you are constantly practicing out every day?
Nothing that we own, but we do have a facility that we've been able to rent out over the last few years, Alamo City All-Stars on 1604, and that's kind of been our home gym in terms of rentals and agreements with.
Okay. So my next question is I don't understand the recruiting with homeschool. I know it on the gymnastics side, so I'll kind of paint a picture. My daughter has a home gym that they go to 5 days a week, and college coaches, like right today, they have Auburn University at the facility. How they do it in colleges is these coaches show up. I mean, I'm sure there's a live period, dead period, but they show up and they spend 4 hours there with the coaches, with the kids, and they hang out and they get to talk to them and all those good stuff. They can't talk to athletes until they get into high school. Our daughter's, super young, but they're still there to watch the older girls. Is that something that you guys are able to do? So you have Alamo City Sportsplex. Are college coaches are able to come in during a live period and watch your athletes work out, practice, talk to you? How does the recruiting process work?
I'll start, and Randy, you could add, I guess. So yes, I mean they would be able to come into our practice. Most of the times where we see coaches, honestly, it's for most of our boys get exposure when they play in the summer for the AAU team, and they travel and they participate in that. But we've had coaches come to local tournaments we've been in. We've had some tournaments that we played in San Antonio where we had college coaches at. The national tournament always draws college coaches as well. And so those would be probably our most opportune times for college coaches to get to see our student athletes. Randy, you want to add?
Yeah, no, I was just going to probably say what you're saying, mainly at the national level. Last year, I know at our tournament, we had one or two college coaches come down to our tournament just to look at a couple of the guys, not just with our program, but also with another local, or not a local program, but another state program. We would welcome a coach into our facility if they wanted to come and just meet and watch a practice or interview a child at that time. We would coordinate that for any college coach as well, if that opportunity ever arose. But it's not like your traditional schooling system either. It's a little bit different.
Yeah, I'm just curious because I like the way they do it in gymnastics. They actually don't go and watch them at competitions. They want to spend more time with the athlete, get to see them a little bit more, how they interact, how they're coachable, how they interact with teammates. Like I like the way gymnastics do it. I wish more college coaches would go to practices. I think you get to see a lot more. I understand why they go to AAU tournaments. I can watch thousands of kids at one location. It's a lot more efficient. But I was just curious if that would be something that college coaches would want to do. Because you guys have some players. I'm being real. I've got to see you guys play. I don't know who that kid is that is dunking every time he gets the ball. I don't know if he graduated or not. I'm hoping he's a returning player for you. I'm sure you know who the player I'm talking about. Just curious, is he back this year with you guys?
He's moved on. I believe he's talking about John. Is that right?
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah. So
I
we
would
had
think
two
so,
we had
but
two boys from last year's team that are going to go on and play college basketball
Awesome.
this coming season. And then, like Coach Randy was saying, we definitely have some on the returning this year that if it's their desire, I believe they would have good opportunities to continue playing in colleges.
Yeah, you guys got some players. That's love. I love to hear that. It's a small little homeschool program is putting kids in college. I mean, that's fantastic. Congratulations to you guys. Love it. All right, so let's talk about scheduling. I know how hard it is for you guys to, obviously you're renting your own gym, so that's, you got your practice schedule there. But then you got to figure out how can you play games throughout the season. I'm sure you're trying to play anywhere from 25 to 35 games. I don't know what your cap is, but so let's talk about kind of non-district, I guess you would say, first, how you guys go about that. And then do you have a district? And I know you have the national tournament. Kind of explain, Anthony, we'll start with you. Explain how the non-district works, and then maybe Randy, you can talk when you guys get into district.
Yeah, so we have a parent on our program. Randy's the commissioner. He's got a parent that works for him that takes the first crack at the scheduling, and she is calling every and all school that she has phone numbers for, coaches, and she's been doing it for now through 2-3 seasons. So she's starting to develop a good contact list. But normally, what happens is we put a request in for games. Some schools, put us right on the schedule. That's a small number. We're thankful for those schools that say yes and want to schedule games with us. But most of them will put us on, I guess it's a wait list or so. Like as the season starts, if an opponent drops out or if a date opens up, they'll call and we may get a last minute game, which we welcome. We'll make it happen, even with short notice, because we're just thankful to get local games. But the majority of our games, if we're playing in and around San Antonio, it's going to be through invitations through a local high school tournament that we get invited to. And there's some now that we've been going to for a few years, so we've established good relationships. We get invited back each year. But it is a challenge to find games in our area and to get on schedules consistently.
So, Randy, before you go to the district or whatever that looks like, a follow-up question for you, Anthony. Why do you think that is? Why do you feel maybe some schools don't want to play you, or why is it so challenging just to get? There's so many schools here in San Antonio. You could play from the 3AL up to. You're good enough to play against 6A teams. I'm just curious why that is.
Yeah, I've never been able to say like for this reason. I think they don't, and I think maybe it's just some of the misperceptions that we had talked about earlier, and in some cases we're not known to a lot of schools, so they may not know what type of opponent they're getting. If they're looking for a certain game, maybe they just think of homeschool and basketball and don't equate it to being a very competitive team, and so maybe they want to go after an opponent that may give them a tougher game. But as a coach, I would say that's not true. I think we're a very competitive team, and we would welcome any opponent. We respect all opponents, but we would love to step on the court with any team, because just getting on the court with some teams in San Antonio, it's a win for us. Just to be able to play, to give these boys that experience, win or lose, it's going to help us further on down in our homeschool season when we get to our playoffs. So, Mark, I think maybe for some of those reasons we talked about earlier, and then as well as them not knowing our brand of basketball, what type of opponent they're getting, I think they may look for a more familiar opponent first, and then just keep us on reserve if they have a date open up later.
I appreciate it. Go ahead, Randy.
Mark, I think there's a machine at work here too. So because many of the games that we do get are going to be with private schools. They're not going to be your public schools. We would love to have more public schools because I think that's where the true competition really lies, especially here in San Antonio. But you get against some of these private schools, and then they're not very large schools. And so when you look at the San Antonio Patriots, if I had to label us, I don't know where you would put us, Anthony, 4A, 5A, somewhere in that ballpark, maybe. Yeah. Around size and scope, somewhere in there.
Yes.
You're playing against a 3A or 2A school, and the competition is, it's great. It's there's a great distance between the competition, and so I've actually had a conversation with an administrator this summer about that. He was telling me, I'm an administrator at this school, and I said, well, I'm with the San Antonio Patriots. I run the basketball program. Maybe we can get together and do something. He's like, yeah, you guys are way too big for us. You guys are way too big for us. And so because we have a parent who's scheduling and it's difficult to get games, you take the games that come, irregardless of the age group. And sometimes the disparity between the two teams is so great that you wind up blowing them out. Saw this in volleyball last night. My daughter went to a volleyball game last night. We was against another homeschool program, but it's a brand new program, and the score was 25-0. I think was one of the games, and it was like, geez, could we not, schedule this a little bit better, and maybe put a lower team against this team? But sometimes you don't know what you don't know. You don't know how good the team's going to be, and so you take the game, and then it kind of feeds that machine of that misperception of you're just a club basketball team. This is what I'm talking about, right? Because of those blowouts, because it's so difficult to get games, you take the games that you can get.
Yeah, I get it. It's a tough situation. I was going to say people don't want to play you because they know 5A, 6A school want to lose. They don't want to lose to a homeschool team. I'm just being real. I want to play them. I've seen you guys play, man, of years. Y'all really, got a lot of size. You play high IQ kids. You have a really good system. Like you guys play some really, really good basketball to watch. So I see it from both sides. I'm more on the ones they don't want to play you because they don't want to get an L on their record. So, but hopefully this brings some light to some, some 6A, 5A school basketball programs on the boys' side that are like, I'm telling you, you guys are being, you're being nice about it. You guys have a great program. I want to see you play against some six. I want you to see against, and I know you want to play against the best programs in San to kind of see where your kids are at. So hopefully this can put it out there. I have a lot of connections with coaches and ADs, so I'm glad we got to connect. Maybe I can help in any way to get you guys help when you are doing your scheduling. Maybe I can get in connection with your parent and help her out and see what I can do to do that. I'd love to get you guys in some field houses, some really nice gyms to get those opportunities. So we'll see what we can do there. All right. So what I want to dive into next is kind of the positive side to homeschool. We've kind of gone back and forth with some misconceptions, but what is the advantage of an athlete, in terms of, and I see it both sides because you do have some flexibility, right? To me, it's kind of like a college athlete. You're not going to traditional school where you show up at 8:00, bell goes at 4:00. You're kind of going from class to class. Like you have some flexibility. That has some pros and cons. I'll be honest with my daughter, right? There's times where I need her to get on and do her class or whatever, and sometimes she doesn't. But I do like it. I feel like it's really kind of put some responsibility on her to grow up and take responsibility for her education. So give me a little bit of both. Give me some pros and cons just from the academic side about the flexibility that they have. Randy, we'll start with you, and Anthony, you can add anything to it.
Yeah, from the academic side, just being a homeschool dad, I wish I could take credit for it, but I can't. I got to give all the credit to my wife. She's the one who does all the hard work around here when it comes to the education. The time in which there's no wasted time, in my opinion. Whereas you go to a brick and mortar school, you got the bell in between. There's times where you're sitting in the classroom where maybe schoolwork's not being done. When you're homeschooling, it's literally like, okay, this is your assignment for the day. Once you're done, you have the rest of your day, right? And so you can knock that out in the first couple of hours, 3 to 4 hours of a day, and then you'll have the rest of the day. So from an academic side, it's a lot more efficient, I think, when you homeschool. It does, create some barriers when it gets to sports because you might have I'd probably say 16-year-old kid who's a senior.
Mm-hmm.
So we lose athletes, as a result of that because of how efficient homeschooling can be. But I think that's a benefit from an educational standpoint. I do think it's a benefit from an educational standpoint. Anthony?
Yeah. And, Randy, you brought across the point there of, we were talking earlier about eligibility. Even though you may have a 16-year-old that's graduated or completed all the high school requirements, homeschool basketball, once you graduate high school, you have no more eligibility. So even though you may have age-wise still have eligibility, once you graduate, you are done with homeschool basketball. And so, like Randy was saying, sometimes we lose kids, a year short of, the full 4-year experience because they do graduate early and move on. So good for them. They're going to pursue their goals of college, but for a program, we sometimes lose athletes early. So flexibility, as Randy was saying, for our middle school programs, we only practice 2 days a week. And for our high school programs, we try to get 3, so I think that's the difference in what other schools are up against. And so families know what the schedule is, and they're able to plan their school days around that. When we we travel a lot. We have to travel a lot to get, the number of games that we desire to get in each year. So even on the road, families are bringing their school and curriculum with them, and hotels in between games. They're schooling on a varsity level. We had several of the boys that were doing college level credit, and so they were taking tests, in hotel lobbies, when we were out doing our trip, so that they could stay up with their work. Like Randy was saying, that's one of the things with homeschool basketball. We know what the schedule is. We could plan around it. It's not uncommon for us to even shut down practice for a day, coming off a long tournament, just to give families a full day back to recover, catch up on their homeschooling, and then we'll pick up practice the next day.
All right. So then is there any negative side? Like a lot of people say, like the social aspect, right? They don't get to see other kids at school, the recess and all that type of, I've heard that it can be negative to homeschool. Any thoughts, Anthony, to that?
Yeah. I would say, that's another misperception. There are so many opportunities for homeschoolers to connect with not just other homeschoolers, but kids in their neighborhood. And then, like I said, a lot of our athletes play throughout the summer, so they're meeting a whole nother group of kids and families and coaches along with it. And then just with social media, the way it is, the way the kids are able to stay in contact with each other, I don't see that socialization as a problem or a barrier or something that we really have to worry about as homeschool families. And I look at the test of time with some of these. I look at our kids that graduate our program, and just using small examples, they'll go on and they'll get married, and their wedding is filled with kids that they grew up with, playing homeschool sports with, and the connection stays even beyond just the basketball court. Because sports has a way of doing that, right? Bringing a bond together of kids that you can't duplicate. It's hard to duplicate elsewhere. And so I think just the idea of being sports, being team-minded, our kids are good at seeking out and maintaining relationships, even in a homeschool setting.
Anthony, do you guys do like team bonding stuff? I'm just curious, do y'all go out and do events?
Yeah.
Outside of, okay.
We do. I mean, we find nearly any reason to celebrate. We have a few moms and dads that are great at scheduling events like that. And we'll get out. We'll do some fun things. We'll do some team bonding things. We'll do some silly things. I mean, one of the things we did a couple of years ago was a scavenger hunt, where we put a parent with a few kids and sent them all over San Antonio to collect various items. And they just had a blast with it. Yeah, they just had a blast, to the mini golf, to top golf, to just team parties. We'll definitely have a reason. Randy, you want to talk a little bit? You guys had, what we did one year, Mark? We were real fortunate. We had a family where we had a firefighter that was in our program, and the son played with us for a number of years, and he invited us down to the fire station, and we spent the night with the firefighters. That was a great team bonding opportunity, not only to learn and appreciate our first responders, but just we sat with them, we had dinner with them, we talked about teamwork, we talked about what works and how to grow closer together as a team. We talked about handling adversity, talked about handling crisis and stress, and that that rivaled any type of basketball night memory that we had, just spending the night with the firefighters and the lessons that were learned through that. So we definitely find ways to do opportunities and seek out opportunities like that. Randy, you want to add?
Yeah, I remember last year we celebrated our seniors. We had a senior night where, the entire basketball program came out, played against the seniors. We had returnees who had graduated before who came out and played. And I think it's important to note that this whole thing, Mark, is done by parent volunteer. Mm-hmm. And so there's a heavy investment from the families. And so that are involved in it. And so there's very much a familial feel to homeschool sports. And because of that, there's always a parent or there's always a volunteer who's looking to engage the youth and the families in some way inside of each team. It always just seems to work out that way. Inside of each team, there's always that one family that kind of percolates up. It's like, hey, we want to get the families together. We want the teams to do this. And I think that's because we are a homeschool community, because going back to your original question, right? It's because of the social connections that are happening outside of the homeschool environment, because it can be like you don't have those social interactions because you're not at a brick and mortar school. I go back to what I told you, I think, before we started the podcast, the way that my son, or right at the beginning when we started the podcast, my son got involved with homeschool sports because his best friend played basketball. He had no desire to play basketball. His buddy invited him over. And that's the way we get a lot of these families at a very early age. They're looking for social connections for their children. And so the social connections organically happen. inside of the basketball program. And then the families become so ingrained together because of that connectedness, because this youth connected with this youth. And then you just start to learn about each other's families and you grow through the program together as families. And so it becomes a really close knit community inside of the homeschool sports program. The beauty of that, and I think you spoke to it earlier, Mark, about watching our basketball program play and the high IQ that happens with that level of basketball. A lot of that is because of how close these teams are. They start playing together at a very, very young age, and they stay together through the homeschool program, and the families grow closer and closer through all these bonding opportunities, because we do travel a lot. So there are late nights in hotels. There are sitting up and watching game tape together. There's Uno nights. There's video game nights. There's, we're bringing supper in together and having dinner together. And that creates a strong, I think, community, not just inside the homeschool, but actually on the basketball court as well. It plays out inside.
Yeah, it's a simple message. We've talked this is number 32. I don't know how many times we talked about parents on almost every podcast, and the importance of parents and having low maintenance parents. We call them elite parents, whatever you want to call them. I've heard so many different names, but it's really, I had a subject here about talking about parents, but you kind of went into it. Parents can make or break your program. I mean, I'm just been, my son's in soccer and we just started a new season. Just found out yesterday, I don't know how many kids have left. Well, whose decision was that? It's not the kids. These kids are 10 years old, right? They're always looking for something else. Me and my wife kind of noticed it throughout the season. You can just see it. It's just, they start talking and another one starts talking. It's a domino effect. It's super negative. So the add-on question I have for you, everybody listening to this knows the importance of parents. Everybody's on the same page. Our gymnastics program has a parent playbook. So the coaches, they give us a parent playbook, expectation from the parent, expectation from the coach, expectation from the athlete. And everyone's like, man, Mark, I need that. It's not rocket science. I mean, okay, it's not like something brand new. You know that those three have to align. Do you guys do anything like parent meeting expectations? It seems like you have a really tight knit. You've got obviously great parents, great kids, but there's got to be some kind of culture that you guys have been doing over the X amount of years. What does that look like?
So when I took over I'll take the lead, and Anthony, if you want to add something, please do. When I took over as commissioner last year for the program, I came in at a point where there was a lot of turmoil, and it was one of the reasons I decided I had a calling to kind of step in and try to help the organization through it. And some of that turmoil was initiated by some of the parent interactions and some of the interactions that were happening with coaches. When you have parents who are as involved as our parents are, particularly homeschool parents who are heavily involved in their child's education, one of the difficult things is, the benefit of going to high school or to a brick and mortar school when sports start is like there's a separation, right? There's a separation between the parent and the basketball practices, where there's closed practices and the coach can get after the kids and things happen inside of those practices that parents aren't privy to, right? They're healthy things. They're normal basketball things. They're normal coach things that happen. Well, because of how involved homeschool basketball is or homeschool sports are, those practices are open practices. So parents see all the interaction that happens between a coach and a child. And so while you have that heavy involvement and there's a lot of wonderful things that also come out of it, it also blurs a little bit of the boundary, right, between what the parent has a say in and what the coach has a say in and what the program has a say in, right? And so we have to guard against that. So when I took over last year, one of the things I initiated and I had all the coaches do was just that. We had a player agreement form that they had to sign. We had a parent agreement form that they have to sign. We're going to stick by it. These are the rules. These are the expectations for you as a parent. These are the rules and the expectations for you as a player when you participate in this program. You will hold your child accountable to this. You will behave in this way, in this fashion within our program. We expect you to carry yourself in these particular ways, your interactions with referees, your representation of our entire program, even at the tournaments that we travel to. And so I have them sign that, and that's not going away anytime. And it's funny because just like you just said, our volleyball commissioner came to me and said, I love this thing. Like, I don't know why we didn't institute this previously within our program. So she instituted it this year inside of her program. And so I think you're right. It's just a matter of setting expectations for parents early on what you can and cannot get away with. Hey, and you signed this agreement, right? You're crossing the line here. And so we can now then hold them accountable to that. throughout the season. And we had a lot less problems with parents, I felt, last year because we set those expectations up at the beginning of the season.
Love it. Anthony, you want to add to that?
No, Randy nailed it. I think just setting expectations and then keeping the lines of communication open, knowing that what I always told our parents is don't, if you're not happy with something, it's not just going to get better. You come and talk to me about it. And so the sooner we could address it, the better it is. And so it's kind of like Randy was saying, since he stepped in as commissioner, put some things in place that's really put us in a good spot with that.
Love it. Okay. Anthony, I'm going to ask you a personal question, then we'll dive into the last thing to close out. I've seen you coach a few times. You must be one of the most calmest coaches I think I've ever seen. And being a referee, I was like, that's somebody we want on our game every single time. I've never seen you really kind of get frustrated, bad calls, whatever it may be. And it kind of reaps through your program. I mean, that's how your kids are super respectful. They never really their anxiety doesn't get too high, and I believe it's through you, right? And then I found out what you do for a living. I had no idea that you actually worked with my wife. I said, okay, it all makes sense. Then I got to know a little bit about you. But I'd love to know, how you stay so calm and how important that is for any coaches listening, right? Because they're like, oh, he's a volunteer dad. No, you're a really, really good coach. I've seen you coach. You run some really good stuff. And I just think your background has really kind of helped you mold these players into just really good young men. Your son, an example of, I got to meet him once and just somebody that I'll never forget. I know he's going to be super successful, and I hope he comes back to officiating because that's something he will definitely have, a future in if he wants to. But just I'm just curious. I'd love to know what your secret sauce is.
Thanks for saying that. I mean, like I said, we're a Christian organization. So every time we step out there, we believe, we're representatives of Jesus Christ. And that's really what we want our student athletes to take away from our program. We love basketball. We love the competition. We love the strategy. But in the end, we want to graduate student athletes that go on to be successful in bigger roles, more responsibilities they have in life. And nothing's more important than, being a great husband or wife, being a great father, or being a great mother. And so as a coach, we just try to set a standard that players feel they have somebody that they could look up to, potentially as a role model, just in terms of behavior. Not perfect, and I'll be the first to admit that, but that is the approach that we take. And Mark, it's not uncommon in homeschooling coaching to see that, that we believe that we're mentors and leaders first, and then a basketball coach second, because we want to set an example where, we're our student athletes that's worth them emulating.
Love it. I know 2 homeschool coaches or 2 organizations, Patriots and my daughters, and they're fantastic. Yeah, I have nothing bad to say, only positive things to say about homeschool coaches. So I appreciate you touching on that. You do a great job. All right, let's close out with kind of the vision and moving forward with this. Anthony, I'll start with you. But the question is, where do you see homeschool athletics kind of heading in the next 5 to 10 years? I'm assuming it's growing. We did talk a little bit off pod about possibly San Antonio adding another homeschool or athletic program. Where's this thing kind of heading? Any ideas?
Yeah, I think it's going to continue to grow. Like I said earlier, with Texas and Governor Abbott signing a law that does allow homeschoolers to participate in public school sports if the school district votes it in. If school districts locally start to vote it in, it's going to change the dynamics of homeschool sports. We'll likely see homeschoolers now have a choice between to go play for the school that they're zoned for, or to come play for San Antonio Patriots or like organization. But either way, I mean, the number of homeschooling families have grown since COVID. I mean, that brought a lot of families to understand homeschooling a little bit more and deciding for their family. So we are seeing that the number of homeschoolers grow up each year, not only in our program, but as we go and we face other opponents across the nation. We're seeing kids that weren't there last year that are here this year. Like, hey, Coach, where do you come from? Like, family's new to homeschooling. And so we are seeing it. We are seeing that continue to grow. I know Coach Randy's, he'll talk about it here in a second, but I mean, his vision is to continue to grow the program and put more opportunities out there for homeschoolers. But I think homeschool basketball is in a good place, not only in San Antonio, but on a national level. Mark, I wish you could experience the national tournament. It's one event that really, when you think it can't get any better, somehow it gets better the following year. The organizers just continue to make it better. The people and the families that show up each year are better. The competition is better each year. And that's one of the things I touch on. When I first started coaching homeschool basketball till now, there's no easy game in homeschool basketball. Opponents have just continued to get better and better over the years. And so I think that's the trajectory that it's on and will continue to be.
So real quick before Randy, you close us out. It's Missouri City. Is that where the Nationals is at? Did I get that right?
It's in Springfield, Missouri.
Okay, Springfield, Missouri.
And then Drury University is one of the host gyms there. It's a Division II gym, beautiful gymnasium. That's where the feature games are, to include the championship game. It's spread over the course of a week. Teams, like I said, it's grown. We've got teams coming from Virginia all the way to Hawaii now. And all teams in between. We play teams from Michigan, from Indiana, Virginia, Arizona. It's grown into such a great week that kind of capstones the season.
Okay, curious. Do you have to qualify for that? And then is it a pool play, bracket play? How does the format work?
Yeah, Randy, you want?
Yeah, every team qualifies for it, but what they do is they rank you throughout the season based off what your homeschool record is and what your overall record is and the talent that you played against throughout the year. And so once that ranking comes out, they determine whether or not you're a Division I, Division II, Division III type program. And so the top program obviously is going to be your Division I's. And then I think how much is in that pool? Division 16?
Yeah,
or 32.
Division I this year was 32 this year.
32 this year. And so I think they went all the way down to Division III this year. That's how many teams are actually participating at the varsity level. And so you work your way through it. It is a bracket play, a pool play, and you work your way down to try to get to that championship game. Very proud of the Patriots program and what Anthony's built here for our varsity program over the last year. He's going to be very difficult to replace. You touched on his calmness, and I was fortunate enough to be an assistant coach with him this year and learn from his approach to the game and the high level of which these boys play the game. The high level basketball IQ is not lost that came from their head coach. And so every year the program has been ranked within the top 10 in the nation. And I think a lot of that had to do with Anthony's leadership at the varsity level. So hoping to carry that and steward that forward.
Right. So spoiler alert, Anthony, you're out. You're not coaching anymore?
Yeah, for this season, I thought it was a good year to transition. I was with these boys from when they were 12U to 14 to 16 and 18U. It's just been a great ride. Like I said, I had other kids in other sports that I've missed games and practices with them, and this will be a good year. And I got a senior in high school this year. I got a senior in college this year, and so I don't want to miss their experiences for this season. So like I told Randy, I'm not going far. I'm still a big Patriot fan and supporter, but for this season, I won't be.
Okay, Dad first. So you'll be back. Don't worry, Randy. He'll be back, Coach. Don't worry.
Yeah.
All right, awesome. This has been great. All right, we're gonna just close on some fun. We're right close to an hour, so we're gonna do quick hitters, basically rapid fire. So first one, NBA or college?
College.
NBA.
I'm a college guy. I watch NBA playoffs, but that's about it.
That's it. Yeah.
And we did. Me and Camille got Spurs tickets this year, so I guess I've got to be
Nice.
more of an NBA fan. Yeah. So, all right, next one: early or late practices?
Early.
I like late.
Okay, you guys are on the opposite spectrum. That's why you guys get on so well. I love it. All right, next one. One word to describe your varsity boys team this year.
Hunger.
I think we're going to be really deep. I'll be coaching them this year, Mark, and I've had to coach them in one or two tournaments this off season, and they're going to be about 10 deep. Yeah.
Okay. All right, next one. If you weren't a coach, what would you be?
Maybe a ref.
You said you'd be a ref?
I would, just to be, if I can't play anymore, I know that. So if I couldn't coach, I'd still want to be connected to the game.
Yeah, but I do this voluntarily, right? Like, I don't get paid for this. I don't get paid for being commissioner or coaching this basketball team next season. And I would love to just do it full time.
Okay.
I would love to coach full time. If not, then I'd love to keep the job I have now, which is running a.
Okay, Anthony, I know somebody that can get you started in officiating, so all right, next one. Best team you've ever played against?
So okay, as in this setting, as a homeschool setting.
Yes.
Yeah, I would say there was we We had a big rival with Aggieland Panthers from College Station. A lot of respect, kind of mirror programs. They're trying to do the same thing we're trying to do. We go up against them several times each year. I always think they're a tough opponent because their kids are just like our kids.
Yeah, I would agree. Aggieland, I always rank Aggieland up there real high. But I tell you, the Memphis team that we got a chance to play this year at regionals, and we pulled in, I wouldn't say it was an upset at the time, but we did finally beat them. They won the national championship, 5 years in a row?
Yes.
Anthony?
Yes.
And we were able to play against them at regionals, and we actually beat them at regionals. Unfortunately, we didn't get a chance to match up against them at nationals. They did go on and win the national championship again. That program is an outstanding homeschool.
Okay, love it. Congrats. Best player you've ever coached against? I don't know if you're in any homeschool kids, like a college player or anybody. I don't know if there's any players out there that I know that the talent's really good, but just a player that you can remember you played against, the best player?
Yeah, I mean, Randy kind of hit on it with the Memphis team. They've had several outstanding players that have done great things. Aggieland's got some great talent out there. We played some local teams that have great athletes as well. Yeah, it's a long list. I don't know, Randy, what do you think?
Toby Pike, Toby Pike up with the PT Warriors. He's about 6'7", 6'8". Yeah, over 200 and looks like the Joker, plays just like the Joker.
Okay.
He is a fantastic basketball player. I think, would he go D2?
Yes.
This year, Anthony?
Yeah, he's going to school in Arkansas. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah,
Toby
fantastic
Pike.
basketball.
Okay, I'll have to look him up. All right, last one. Favorite basketball movie?
Hoosiers.
I knew it. Yep, old school.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, Hoosiers. Yeah,
Hoosiers.
sure.
Yeah. All right, awesome. Well, that closes our quick hitters. Hey, fellas, I appreciate you both coming on. This has been very, very enlightening for me to learn about the homeschool program. And I know there's other sports, but we are a basketball podcast, so I appreciate you touching on that. This is going to be great for parents, any basketball head in San Antonio listening, to kind of be educated about it. I will get your information, put it in the description if anybody would be interested in reaching out to you guys, kind of learn a little bit more about it. I love the way that the homeschool program is headed. It's definitely growing, which is great. The basketball is growing, more teams. I can't wait to see how you guys do this season. And Randy, I'm sure you'll be reaching out to Anthony a lot for some help. If you guys need anything throughout the season from a referee standpoint, scheduling standpoint, I'm a resource for you. I'd love to help in any way I can. And I appreciate you both coming on. And good luck this season. And take care. And we'll be talking to you guys soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you for listening to the Dropping Dimes podcast. Make sure to go follow us on IG at Dropping Dimes Pod. Remember, each Friday, we'll be dropping a new episode, so hit the follow and bell notification buttons to never miss any content. Let's get better together. We out.